Children in Gaza are hungry, and the fear is that they're about to get hungrier. Donors to UNRWA, the main UN agency that supports Palestinians, including the UK, withdrew their funding 10 days ago because of allegations in a confidential Israeli document that this programme has now seen. The document repeats an allegation the Israel Defense Force has made many times, that the Hamas terrorist organization has been methodically and deliberately emplacing its terrorist infrastructure in a wide range of UN facilities and assets, but provides no evidence to support its explosive new claim that UNRWA staff were involved in the terror attacks on Israel, just stating, "From intelligence information, documents and identity cards seized during the course of the fighting, it is now possible to flag around 190 Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist operatives who serve as UNRWA employees. More than 10 UNRWA staffers took part in the events of the 7th of October. Israel gave the document to donors just after the International Court of Justice in The Hague made an interim ruling on a charge of genocide against Israel.
Israel must take immediate and effective measures to enable the provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance.
It is utterly shocking that the donors who accuse UNRWA of instrumentalizing aid, as they have done, are themselves weaponizing UNRWA. It is a violation of international humanitarian law. It's a violation of international principles. It's a violation of the ruling by the ICJ, which says nobody.
Yeah, by the way, yeah, it came directly after. It came directly after the ICJ decision. So if you want to understand why this happened, it's because we wanted to state a message here. Okay?
Nobody should squeeze international humanitarian aid. What's Britain and others done? They've squeezed the aid. And it's a violation, arguably, of the Genocide Convention, because it will devastate the lives of 1.2 million people who were on UNRWA's food lines even before the 7th of October, and that's going to get longer. It will undoubtedly, if unsuspended, lead to mass starvation.
Apart from emergency aid, UNRWA runs schools, hospitals and other services for 5.9 million Palestinian refugees across the Middle East. It employs 13,000 Gazans, all of whose names have been checked against a UN terrorism list and as recently as last May were vetted and approved by Israel. UNRWA immediately fired the staff members named in the document and mounted an investigation.
UNRWA is playing a critical role. It's true that the Israeli government has been very critical of UNRWA, not now, from many times ago, but we cannot punish 2 million people by depriving them from the support that UNRWA is providing. Who will take care of that?
No. The Israeli Prime Minister, who met a UN delegation last week, is angry that UN reports about the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza were cited as evidence in the genocide hearing, adding to his anger that UNRWA staff allegedly took part in acts of terror.
I think it's time that the international community and the UN itself understand that UNRWA's mission has to end.
Fucking Nazi piece of shit.
Today, UNRWA released photographs they say show a food aid truck in Gaza which was hit by Israeli naval gunfire. The Israelis haven't yet commented. In Gaza, the suffering never seems to end. Today, the UN Secretary-General announced an investigation into UNRWA to be headed by a former French foreign minister. If UNRWA were forced to close, another organisation would have to step in. Under international law, in the West Bank and Gaza, the occupying power, which is Israel, would be held responsible.
Well, earlier I spoke from our studio to UNRWA's spokesperson, Juliet Toomer, and I began by asking if they had received any evidence from Israel to support the allegations being made.
There is an ongoing investigation that is not conducted by UNRWA. It is being done by the highest investigative office of investigations in the United Nations. That investigation is ongoing, and they are going to do their work and look into all these allegations.
When was the last time UNRWA had given a list of employees or contractors to Israel?
Every year, we send a list of all our staff working with us across the
UNRWA is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees. It is the single most important refugee agency that exists, okay, for Palestinians. They hire 13,000 Palestinians. They literally, they clothe them, they feed them. It is designed and established specifically because of Israel's genocidal actions, okay? It is an agency directly propped up as a consequence of Israel's ongoing ethnic cleansing, ethnic displacement campaign, okay? It's crazy. They are basically like, they're not a government, but they're the entire industry. And for the record, yeah, they are also directly stopping aid by letting Israeli civilians sit in front of the trucks. They're letting Israeli civilians sit in front of the trucks to deny aid going into Gaza. And Israel itself bombed an UNRWA relief truck. All the while, the U.S. has admitted that it has not verified Israel's UNRWA claims, and yet the media has not talked about it.
The region to the host governments, and we have not received.
Israel is, all nations lie, but Israel lies so much more. Like, as someone who has criticized American foreign policy in perpetuity, I have never seen a country lie so much. Every fucking organ of propaganda is just straight up, like, lying in the absolute dumbest ways too. Okay? With no real interest in even like trying to cover it up, because they're playing in journalist difficulty, because the media oftentimes has baby gloves. Okay? You've never heard of Serbia and Russia? Brother, actually, it's pretty good. Russia is like, you know what? No, Israel is even worse than Russia. Why? Because Russia at least adopts an interesting technique where Russia plays both sides of the equation in the Western world. Okay? Russia lies all the fucking time too, of course. But let me tell you something. Russia also adopts this very interesting strategy where, at least because they're our foreign adversary, they have to find creative ways of lying. Their goal is to destabilize, right? Because they're not going to get a lot of support. They're not going to get a lot of support from the American government or the Western world anyway. So they go and they do this weird thing that I've talked about a lot, where Russia Today will literally have like Chris Hitchens on, or not Chris Hitchens, Chris Hedges, sorry. And then talk about like American imperialism and how devastating it is or whatever, right? And then the next hour it'll be like some fucking psycho right-wing guy being like, Russia is upholding the white race by eliminating every transgender Ukrainian. And that is still a more unique way. It's still a fucking lie across the board. They're doing propaganda, right? But they hit it from both angles because they have to, because they know that their goal is to destabilize, right? Their goal is to destabilize and cause commotion and cause confusion in the Western world. Okay? Israel, on the other hand, is completely aligned with the American State Department because it's an extension of America's State Department. So therefore, they don't even feel the fucking need to like come up with creative reasons. By the way, I'm not saying that Russia's lies are okay. Please do not misunderstand me. I'm not defending Russia at all.
received a response to the content of that list from the government of Israel.
Were the 12 names that Israel has made allegations against on that list that was sent in May 2023?
I would assume they were.
It must have come as a surprise then.
It came as a shock.
Normally, as you know, if allegations are made against members of staff in any large organisation, sacking is not the first action. There's usually a suspension pending an investigation. Had UNRWA been given or had it acquired its own evidence that showed there was some sort of prima facie case?
The Commissioner General of UNRWA took that decision in the best interest of the agency.
Yeah, sorry, do you understand the question I'm asking you? I mean, I understand that there are allegations made. You then sacked those people, terminated their employment. Did you take that step, which is a big step normally after allegations are made, because of evidence that has perhaps not yet been placed in the public domain, or merely because of the seriousness of those allegations?
The latter, because of how serious these accusations are. And like I said, the Commissioner General of UNRWA did this in the best interest of the agency due to the huge risks, both to the reputation of the agency and also the largest humanitarian operation in response to the war in Gaza.
So did you realize in that time that the donors would turn off funding to UNRWA?
I would say we have informed our largest donors. I don't think any of us has anticipated this huge number of our friendly donors who have been our partners for decades on end to suspend the funding so quickly like they've done. I mean, in just over 24 hours, 9 of our donors suspended funding to UNRWA. I also think none of us have anticipated that this would be done in the middle of a war and to the largest humanitarian organization who's responding to what has become very quickly one of the most complex and most difficult humanitarian crises in the world right now for the UN.
Is there any comparable example you can think of funding being suspended before an investigation has been?
Just some normal shit happening here. Hogwatch, baby. Better sanction those individuals. Yeah, Biden sanctioned like 4 people, by the way, called it a fucking day. And Israel is so used to just like unconditional support from the U.S. that like they were complaining about 4 fucking settlers in the West Bank getting sanctioned. It's like, bro, there's at least 75,000 American citizens that are currently participating in an illegal act of terror, okay? Settler terrorism is illegal under international humanitarian law. Those are American citizens that are in the West Bank right now. Sanction every single one of them. Are you out of your fucking mind? 4 people? 75,000 immediately. It's crazy.
Reported.
Nothing.
I would literally, dude, magic wand, okay? Criminally prosecute every single American citizen that went and fought with the IDF immediately. I think every nation that claims to care about international human rights law should abso-fucking-lutely criminally prosecute every single motherfucker, whether they're from Australia, whether they're from England, whether they're from the United States of America, that flew into Israel to fight in the IDF. Every single one of them should be prosecuted as murderer terrorists, okay? I don't care. I'm sorry if you have friends that fucking did this very same thing that I'm talking about. I'm sorry. They should 1,000,000% be prosecuted to the full extent of the motherfucking law for the war crimes that they contributed to.
Comes to mind, perhaps others who spent longer in the United Nations, they might know the answer to this. But the worth of the suspension of funding is about half of the agency's operational.
And before people go, didn't Braze do this or whatever the fuck, because I saw some people say in the chat, notice how I'm not saying that about fucking Ukraine? Because there's a difference. I'm sorry, okay? I don't have to be a fucking Ukrainian flag in the bio guy, but I do recognize that there's a difference there, okay? There's a difference.
Budget. So we're talking about a huge amount of money.
Given the suspension of the funding from these key donors, how long can you continue to operate?
So we're likely to be forced to suspend our operations by end of February, beginning of March, if the funding does not resume.
What does that mean in practical terms, as you say, because it's so extensive, the activity of UNRWA? Does that mean, all, schooling, all agencies, all work will just stop?
We're going to be forced to make very tough decisions that humanitarian aid workers are not supposed to be forced to do.
Thank you very much.
Anyway, even the New York Times did a visual investigation analysis of social media videos found Israeli soldiers filming themselves in Gaza and destroying what appears to be civilian property. The footage provides a rare and unsanctioned window into the war. It's not that rare. I don't even think it's unsanctioned. I think it's just evil, pure evil, and that is exactly what the Israeli actions are. So it's not that shocking. Here's the White House response to that report about UNRWA, by the way.
Did the White House receive an ironclad evidence that actually the UNRWA staff member, 12 of them, were involved in the October 7 attack? Because 4 news organizations, including Financial Times, Channel 4, and Sky News, found no evidence to support the Israeli claim. They said actually what they provided was just cell phone messages and cards that been found after Israel went to this. Yes. Well, so where are you in the process of reviewing that? And second, considering the disaster humanitarian situation in Gaza, what's the alternative if you're waiting for the results to come out or the review to come out?
The alternative of
that's the White House suspended.
Bro, they're not even doing a good job. They're just so bad at like defending this genocidal policy too. Like how is it? It's been months, man. It's been months. It's been months. You should have gotten better at defending baby murder by now. You know what I mean? How? How are they so bad? It genuinely shocks me at how bad Israel is at lying. Okay? And it genuinely shocks me how bad America is at like responding to this kind of shit.
So, look, a couple of things there. As you know, there's an investigation happening, so we're going to let that investigation move forward. And look, funding for Palestinian civilians is a team effort. And so, for example, while we continue to provide funding to organizations like WFP, other countries may continue to fund UNRWA, which is their own sovereign decision. That is their right. As we've said before, it is important for UNRWA to complete its internal review, as I just stated, before the U.S. will provide any additional funding. We got to get to the bottom of this. To your point, we got to get to the bottom of this. But there's no denying that UNRWA does critical life-saving work here, and we get that, and we understand.
That's great. Thank you. Which is why we shut it down.
So we're going to, as I said, it is getting that critical need to Palestinian civilians is a team effort, and there are obviously other avenues that we have used, but they have to have this investigation. We got to get to the bottom of this. Okay.
We got to get to the bottom of this. After we participated in the killing of children.